I've worked a lot of night jobs in my life, but nothing prepared me for this one. They told me the park had been closed for over 20 years. No power. No guests. No staff. But if that's true, then why, every night, do the rides still move? And why do I keep hearing voices over the intercom? It started like most bad decisions, with desperation. I'd been out of work for 3 months, my rent was overdue, and my phone was full of debt collection calls I didn't want to answer. Then I saw the ad. I've worked a lot of jobs to keep the bills paid, but this one was different. This one felt wrong before it even started. The ad said, "Night security needed, Westwood Fun Park, $2,000 a week. $2,000 for watching an empty park at night?" It sounded impossible to turn down, especially when you're broke, 3 months behind on rent, and wondering if your lights will still be on next week. But there's something you should know about Westwood Fun Park. Back in the late 80s, it was the place everyone wanted to be. Roller coasters that lit up the skyline, a Ferris wheel you could see for miles, and a carousel that never seemed to stop spinning. Then, almost overnight, it was gone. The gates were locked, the rides were left to rust, and whispers of accidents, disappearances, and a fire in one of the attractions spread through town. No one ever confirmed the stories, but no one denied them either. I told myself the rumors didn't matter. I needed the money. So when a man in a gray suit handed me a ring of keys and a list of rules for surviving the night, I laughed nervously and thought it was just some creepy initiation. But by the time the first night ended, I understood. Those rules weren't there to keep the park safe from me. They were there to keep me safe from the park. The first night started quiet. Too quiet. I remember stepping through the gates, my flashlight beams slicing through the thick, dusty air, and thinking, this isn't so bad. The rides loomed over me like giant skeletons, rusted metal, peeling paint, seats swaying gently in the wind. The air smelled faintly of burnt sugar, the kind you'd expect from cotton candy, except there hadn't been a food stand open here for decades. The hours crawled by. I checked the gates, locked, then walked past the ticket booths, their glass shattered, the inside coated in a layer of dust so thick it muted my footsteps. The only sound was the crunch of gravel under my boots. Then, at exactly 1:14 a.m., I heard it. Soft at first, barely there, the delicate, tinny notes of carousel music. I froze. The rules the man gave me flashed in my head. Rule number 2, if you see the carousel moving, do not approach it. The music grew louder, drifting through the air like it was pulling me toward it. My flashlight shook in my hand. There was no electricity here. No reason for anything to move, let alone play music. I turned back toward the security office, my heart hammering, but not before I caught something out of the corner of my eye. One of the carousel horses moved. Not the ride, just the horse. Its head lifted, glass eyes glinting in the dark. And then, slowly, it smiled at me. That was the moment I stopped thinking of those rules as a joke. I shut the office door behind me and stared at the laminated card on the desk. 5 rules. 5 ways to stay alive in this place. I'd already seen enough to know they were written in blood, not ink. It was tempting to tell myself I'd imagined it. That the horse hadn't moved, that the smile was just a trick of my flashlight beam. But the music had been real, faint at first, then deafening by the time I got back inside. And the second I shut the door, it stopped. Like it knew I was listening. That's when I noticed the phone in the main office. Old, heavy, with a spiral cord and dust thick enough to write my name in. The third rule burned in my head, never answer the ringing phone in the main office. I almost laughed, until it rang. The sound was shrill, unnatural, like every ring was being pulled through water. I stared at it, my pulse pounding in my ears. Something in my gut told me if I picked it up, I wouldn't be talking to a person. It rang 9 times before going silent. And then, faint but clear, a voice whispered from the receiver. "We see you." That's when I realized, the rules weren't just about avoiding danger. They were warnings for things that were already watching me. After that phone call, everything felt different. The shadows in the park didn't just shift with the wind, they moved against it, like they had a mind of their own. I started noticing shapes in the corners of my vision that disappeared the moment I looked straight at them. One night, I caught a glimpse of the park mascot. It was supposed to be retired, just a dusty costume hanging in a storage room, but there it was, walking slowly between the rides, its oversized head tilting like it was studying me. When it saw me watching, it stopped dead and turned, but there was no face beneath that mask. Just darkness. Voices started coming through the intercom, soft at first, almost like whispers. Then clearer. They called my name. At first I thought it was someone messing with me, another night guard playing a prank. But I was alone. The park had been abandoned for decades. The intercom crackled again, and the voice said, "You don't belong here." It wasn't angry. It wasn't pleading. It was a warning. By then, I was barely holding on to my sanity. I didn't know if these things were spirits trapped in the park or something else entirely, but one thing was clear: I was no longer the hunter. I was the hunted. One night, everything went wrong. I was tired, more tired than I'd ever been, and I made a mistake. I broke one of the rules. It wasn't intentional, but it was enough. The Ferris wheel's lights flickered on. Rule number 4 said to turn them off immediately, but I looked up. And that's when I saw it, something perched at the top, glowing eyes staring down at me. My heart slammed in my chest as the wheel began to creak and groan, slowly turning in the dead stillness. Suddenly, alarms blared, old speakers crackling with static and distorted screams. The rides around me awoke like beasts, metal grinding, chains rattling, lights flashing wildly. The carousel spun faster, horses leaping as if alive, their glass eyes wild and unblinking. I ran, heart pounding, breath ragged, trying to escape the mechanical nightmare. But the park had changed. The paths twisted and warped, like the park itself was alive, trying to trap me inside. Behind me, the mascot, the one with the empty face, started moving faster, chasing me with a terrible, unnatural gait. I could hear its footsteps pounding the ground like thunder. That night, I learned the park wasn't just haunted. It was hungry. And it wanted me. I barely made it out that night. As dawn broke, the park fell silent again, the rides frozen, the shadows retreating like nothing had happened. I didn't look back as I drove away, my hands shaking on the wheel. I quit the job that very morning. But the nightmare didn't end. Sometimes, when it's quiet and I'm alone, I still hear the faint creak of the Ferris wheel turning, the distant calliope music playing just beyond the edge of hearing. And once, I found a small, worn carousel horse figurine on my doorstep. I never owned one. The park never stopped running. It waits. Watching. Hungry. And I'm pretty sure whatever followed me home isn't done yet. If you ever get a chance to take a job like mine, just don't. Some places aren't meant for the living. Thanks for listening to my story. If you enjoyed this video and want more creepy true tales, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a spine-chilling story. Stay safe out there, and remember, some rides never really stop.